My name is Michael Roy Turney, and again, I've made many videos trying to explain to you the facts. The actual facts of this case is quite simple. This is a man who has offended, pissed off, whatever American term you want to use, the City of Phoenix Police Department, Maricopa County, State of Arizona, the federal government, and a private organization called the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. And they've used the power of media. They use the power of the government to punish me under the excuse that I allegedly molested and murdered my own daughter, one that I spent a tremendous amount of energy trying to keep the rule of law in her life. My own daughter, which we have often seen through history, has decided that she's going to punish me for what she said openly, which nobody wants to put on the air, that I took away her mother. And she said this for a long, long time. But what is really a tragedy to this nation is that this nation, though it's supposed to protect our borders and the sovereignty of this nation, allows the people from South America to continue attack us with drugs, stealing our children, selling them, murdering them for profit in a state that is so corrupt and so bad that people brag that we're the quarter for human trafficking, sex slave trade. All of this promoted by a Chinese communist country-owned media outlet called TikTok. If that's not the total mockery of the greatest nation, who, after a horrible war, and we were part of defeating one of the worst axis of evil that ever existed on this planet, and we picked up this world. We did. We Americans were the greatest people in the world because we came from all over the world. We are the melting pot, as I was told. And back when I was a child, we had Judeo-Christian values. This was a rule of law. And the churches took those who were down and out. Then we slowly slipped into a government-controlled society. And now we allow this kind of stuff. Now I know, and I've witnessed, because I do look back at events that have occurred. In this particular case, as I look at the back of it, of the people who initiated this, which is solely based on emotional, irrational females. Starting with Alistair Adele, who ignored a man much, much better in law than she is, without a doubt, named Bill Montgomery, who said there's nothing here. You can't proceed and go for it. But she initiates a communist socialist attitude that if you present a petition with 300,000 signatures, that's more than sufficient to arrest a veteran who served his nation, who served his community with honor. And that's what we've turned into. And then it takes again to all these, and believe me, many female hysteria. And even though I had two lawyers who were not that way, because I had three public defenders, one of which exposed that two men, Vince Imbardino and William Anderson, Phoenix PD, lied under oath to a grand jury, which again, that system needs to be trashed. One-sided standing there where they can just lie as long as they want. Now, we do have supposedly checks and balance where we're allowed to send it back to the judge, but this judge happened to be a female, stuck in the emotional hysteria that should never be allowed on the bench. And she denies that, even though it was shown, not only misleading the grand jury, but they lied to them. And this is allowed, according to Arizona lawyers, two female lawyers that I'm dealing with now, for Maricopa County and for the city, the state, are telling me I failed to state a claim because they say that they have the right in Arizona to detain you at any time for as long as they want, punish you all the way before due process, and just as the Arizona state has been, even when it was a territory, to defy the rule of law. Because Arizona is not a constitutional state and it doesn't believe in the civil rights. Never has. It's been forced to comply with this because of what our government uses and other companies use is called economic sanctions. A state that literally needs, for a period of time, to be taken over by good people with the power of the United States, and why we do need a central government to oversee and protect people who happen to live in an unconstitutional, anti-civil rights state like Arizona. Not saying it's the only one, but this is the only one I know about. But I could go back and specifically tell you what Sarah's turning around, which is my daughter. A person that we wanted to make, and this is Barbara's dream of having a Turney Bunch, to create this family unit. And this woman worked so hard in spite of all of the bad things and the interference. And now this child not only mocks her dream, but she mocked the United States Constitution while working in and for TikTok. And you have people that support this by paying her for this. You have NBC and ABC, which basically their money making is gossip, soap operas. And then they claim it to be documentaries. Has news media really become that bad and that evil that they're going to go ahead and allow this kind of rumors, innuendos, and lies and gossip? So does 1692 repeat itself? The axis of evil, which exists within the United States, can take any citizen anytime who just happens to live in Maricopa County or the state of Arizona and imprison them and stand up and say, whoops, I guess he was acquitted. And then badger the judge that did it because what he saw was exactly what he understood, that he needed to maintain the integrity of the bench and the rule of law in this country. But the hysteria, which seems to be primarily within our female social, and you can see this even in a presidential election. I can't tell you how many women I've heard said that they're going to leave this country. What are they, cutting their hair off, denying sex to their husbands? What is this hysteria? Because hysteria, folks, can lead to the destruction of an entire entity, which is what the United States of America is. And if you think this empire can't end, this kind of trash garbage that is allowed to punish a man who served his country and served his community, and deny him and torture him for 3 years and then stand up and say, well, technically, you don't have you have not stated a claim that we can actually pay on, because cops are allowed to lie. Prosecutors are allowed to lie. We're allowed to take you using a full military operation, totally unnecessary, because all you have to do is call the man downtown and you can make a peaceful arrest much cheaper. But we can expend all of your tax money anytime we want to because we are God. We're in control. We own you. You're not a citizen of Arizona. You're a subject of Arizona. And yet we have a government who wants to really, I guess, ignore this. And that's the worst, I mean, I've always believed that what is worse, the person that commits the crime or the good person who does nothing? And this is exactly what we're looking at. I put this stuff on YouTube, trying to give you the facts of the case. And I have all these females and a few males. Maybe those are the ones that want to be transgender. I don't know, get a sex change. And they want to attack me viciously. And I look at this thinking to myself, maybe it's true. All these females were molested when they were children. And if that be the case, that all of us males are that evil, maybe God needs to destroy us like Sodom and Gomorrah. Because I do believe that a God exists, although he and I have a dispute over his taking a 34-year-old woman instead of me, as I prayed and asked him to do, because my children were raised pretty much, but hers were not, in our combined family of mine, hers, and ours, the Turney Bunch. And he chose to take her instead. And though science says she died from a ruthless cancer known as large cell carcinoma, and I did all I could to make her as comfortable as she could, including letting her die in her own home, next to her children, her two little girls. It's turned around by feminine hysteria, as though that's some kind of an evil thing. So do we really want to move and progress to the next level? That we really want this kind of female hysteria to run the greatest nation and most powerful nation in the world, folks? Not like that. It doesn't mean that there aren't some great leaderships in our females. But until they themselves who are given the power of government, like the federal district judge had over me, who saw without a doubt the Constitution of the United States was violated. But because of her political ties to one of the most corrupt and evil presidents that ever sit in our White House, she looked the other way. Now, whether that was because of the political payback for being appointed to the most powerful right now entity for life with a king's ransom, we'll never know, because we have a secret government that sits back behind closed doors and makes all of these deals. Instead of the glass house that our founding fathers wanted, this kind of tripe gossip can destroy a human being. Now, as far as the energy spent on this trash, instead of searching for my daughter or doing what we should do as a sovereign nation, instead of going down and saying, you're one of our allies, but here's the bottom line. We're going to go follow this trail of human trafficking, and we're going to find out who are these people south of our borders who are doing this atrocity of human trafficking and sex slave trade going through Arizona, and we're going to destroy it. And if you're in the middle of our way, we're going to destroy you, because we are a Judeo-Christian nation. We believe in the rule of law. We believe if we're going to be the most powerful people, that we are not going to allow this anywhere in the world, but we're damn sure not going to allow it right in front of our face in the United States of America. And if you are participating in this, we're no longer going to take and use our power to throw everybody who even is associated with some of this kind of stuff, especially the drugs, in prison. We're going to go after the people who produce it. Now, this is not some grandiose thing, folks. That's what this case is about, exposing Arizona's corruption, all the way from city, county, state, who also, because of the evil associated with this state, has people who are for the United States of government as corrupted just as well. And if I don't need to tell after all of this election that you've just wished, that the Department of Justice at the federal level is so corrupt that anyone who gets the power of that White House can use it to destroy another human being, then folks, you need to really get your head out of the sand, stop following the sheep blindly of the flock you're running in, and pay attention. This kind of behavior can destroy even the most powerful empire on this planet. And it only takes a heartbeat for someone to lose its sanity and start hurling nukes, folks, and then it's all over with. Now, what I can tell you for the feminists, these radicals who decide they're going to use their sex and everything, and according to statistics, if you believe that stuff, birth in America has been down for a while because of whatever, usually has to do with some kind of attitude. We're hoping, those of us who love this nation, that this insanity of this feminist new dominant species will pass on. But if this nation and the world goes back to the caveman days, ladies, pay close attention. You will be reduced to nothing but what you were back in the cave days, as nothing but someone to reproduce children and for the pleasure of the male, who in fact, if you don't comply, will kill you. And that is a shame, because we have gone so far as a species. We have risen out of the dark ages. We have actually set up a Bill of Rights that's supposed to make anyone, regardless of age, regardless of sex, regardless of race, nationality, that they're equal under the law. My case exemplifies that that's not true. If you're a troublemaker, whistleblower, whatever filthy name you want to put on it, you're nothing more, and I've always believed I'm nothing more than a messenger. Trying to, if you believe it or not, and I'm not Jesus Christ by no means, trust me, because if I was, I would use the bolt of lightning or the power he has. Although I can say this much, the trail of deaths, the trail of tragedy of the people who lied, who went after me and falsified things, is getting to be very, very radical. Starting with Alistair Adele, Maricopa County attorney. She's dead. So is her husband. Now, the fate, as I look at my daughter, who I worry about constantly, to show how irresponsible she is for her own self and her own heritage, she will not have children, will not pass on the gene. Maybe that's rightfully so. Maybe the messenger should be stomped out before it's even brought to light, because these people cause nothing but disharmony for the evil that can happen when a government allows it. Now, my daughter, as exemplified, if you look at her, is obese. She's setting herself up for a tragedy for her own self in exchange for seeking fame and fortune and using this tragedy to do that because she hates her father because, in her opinion, I took away her mother. And then she's using the excuse, the tragedy of her own sister. And that's been done before with tragedies in families. And John Walsh would be one of the better examples. But now she's sitting back and she's doing something that she had to listen to constantly. And she's lying and telling people, Dad didn't even care because I was smoking cigarettes. That's an absolute 100% lie. That if you are going to be punished for lying, that will be one of them. My children, that they claim was a cult, they claim that I indoctrinated them, had to listen to, especially Sarah, Alyssa, and John, the mother of Barbara Lee Turney, whose family has the tragedy, a curse, if you wish, to have weakness DNA, as was found doing all this tobacco stuff, that if they consume a great deal of carcinogenic chemicals, due to whatever their susceptibility to these things that causes cancer, they're going to die. Over 50% of that family, according to their tradition, the people that I spoke with when I wanted to know why. My lovely wife, at the age of 34, died from a product produced in this country that killed over 20 million people from 1965 until 1995 when the hearings were held. They continued to kill people. And she smokes those cigarettes that killed her own mother, mocks the United States Constitution, and then stands up and puts the video that I took, which was very hard for me to watch my 34-year-old wife in a coffin. But I took that and put it on one of my VHS tapes, along with her playing with her children, and sent it to our government, elected few, and that cesspool that sits in Washington, and said, is this what this nation has become? That we can forfeit a young woman and her children and take them these children's mother away, which is one of the reasons Sarah is very, very mentally ill. Now, there's no question that I'm mentally ill, folks, and yet no one wants to bring it up. Mr. Turney rambles. Why is he rambling? What's he covering up? What's he hiding? It's a mental illness, folks, diagnosed by 6 different MD psychiatrists, 4 of which were hired by the United States government to undermine a federal whistleblower case, to hide that this nation allows unions, factions, to bribe and actually destroy a man, to fire him 3 weeks before his wife dies at his most vulnerable time, denying him the same rights they gave to a union member. Even though he's done a great job, they call it high performance review and a promotion. And yet, though the hearings are got back and the courts say you have to reinstate him, the power of corruption in the Department of Energy and the unions from the AFL-CIO on down want this man destroyed. They want to take away his right to apply the occupation that he spent 4 years to learn because they can just bribe and buy government power. This is the United States of America. And I do not believe that I am the only one. I've never thought that. In fact, I've seen it throughout my life, and I've done my best, whatever abilities God gave me, which just happened to be litigious, and tried to protect the United States Constitution, the rule of law at my level. Not an attorney. I don't have millions and billions of dollars to do that. And sit back and watched over the years as this Constitution has been destroyed right before our eyes by very evil people. And now we watch an emotional hysteria by females. A large amount of them. You should read the emails. It leads you to believe that every child in this nation, every female, was molested, which I refuse to believe, based on my simple belief that fathers do not harbor incestual feelings towards their daughters, as Sigmund Freud wrote. That's another tripe gossip thing, that when people grab onto that, as we see with all of these females who now have demanded, they want more rights than equal rights. And it's been a struggle for them to get there. It's been a struggle for the blacks, it's been a struggle for the Irish, it's been a struggle for the Italians, for everything. That we're going to sit back and let people who are obviously mentally deranged, who want to make us a gender-free nation, to where a father can be called in by a school. And this is the beginning of it when Alyssa was in middle school, and this Arizona was known for kicking out and arresting more middle school students in the entire United States of America. I'm called in because a really evil person who is now all over the news as a great savior, the great person, because my daughter, Alyssa, who is the subject of all of this, and the power of this nation should really at least track down what happened to my daughter with all this massive surveillance, but they won't. They can, but they won't. I'm called in by this school and told they're going to expel my daughter, clearly learning impaired, all known by this, and a father who forced a state that's anti-civil rights and anti-constitution to comply with a federal law because they didn't have one of their own. She was making out lesbian activities on campus with my daughter. She's older. She had a very bad reputation, really a sick person because she had one of those open families that allowed anything going on they wanted to go on. And the school wants to expel my daughter based on that, and then based on the hatred at that time of children who were gay, which just happened to be two of her brothers. So I've seen both sides of this spectrum, folks, and I'm watching this in my great nation, supported by NBC and ABC. And I'm hoping somewhere along the line I can find some kind of a rock or large branch in this rapid, out of control river that I'm on, who will sit back and say, my God, this can go on in the United States of America. And all of this is clearly, completely recorded, which those recordings, of course, have been destroyed by the government. Okay, to where a man can sit back and watch people as he challenged these people, sit back and say, doesn't matter what the Constitution says. In Arizona, the Constitution does not apply in a criminal case. And it will only apply if the federal government stands up and says, you will comply with the Constitution. And at times, folks, like in Utah's history in the past, people who control that state stood up and said, we don't believe in federal powers. We believe in state powers. One of the major issues covered up, denied, and hidden that contributed to the Civil War, our most bloodiest, vicious war, created by the two political parties that we're only allowed to have. And anyone who established a viable third party is going to be destroyed, or in Teddy Roosevelt's case, when he defeated the Republicans, he was shot. And yet we don't see, as good Americans, because there's nobody greater than us, folks, because we come from all over this planet. We represent the earth, this nation, it really does, which has the power to destroy almost every nation on this planet. And yet we sit back and we allow tragedies like my family, Barbara's dream of the Turney Bunch, be destroyed with the help of NBC and ABC and TikTok, a communist-run and owned company that's literally invaded us, not just because the fact that it's a profitable thing, folks, so they can spy on the United States. Use all these things to spy and prepare, which is always known. Intel is the first thing you notice that someone's going to invade. And all throughout our history, if you read all of the stuff, you see that people of a nation getting ready to be attacked, there's always intel that goes on against the enemy who wants to destroy them. And it's going on right now, and Americans are more concerned with the gossip and tripe stuff coming from NBC, ABC, whatever, all these other little radical things are going on. And even if you get one TV station who's doing it for profit as well, tells you, look, this is just not the truth, Americans choose, the female section of us choose to listen to rumors, innuendos, and lies that incites the hateful superstitions that all men are evil. We got a serious internal problem, folks. And how do you approach that? I don't have an answer. I can tell you there's a long list of people that have died, and there's a longer list that's going to die. Because the fact, this is what God does behind the closed doors, folks. Those who defy his 10 commandments, and in the Jewish case, over 200 commandments, he has a way to destroy them. Now they think, he destroyed me. I'm 76 years old, folks. Most people at this age, this is the longevity of America. And I've lived a full life that I've watched with tears in my eyes a great nation deteriorate to this kind of trash garbage. I've lost the love of my youngest daughter, which was probably never there. I don't know. I've listened to her for years and years, and one of the greatest little creatures ever created on this planet. If you don't like the term, I don't give a damn. But Alyssa was a sweetheart, and there was evidence all over the place to prove that. And I'm the one that counseled her. And believe it or not, I enjoyed educating Alyssa as to what people had convinced her to do was not only dangerous, but it was wrong. And in many cases, it was actually a violation of the law. And I enjoyed watching her learn this kind of stuff and saw her every time turn around and trust the wrong people like Charity Robinson, Katie, and one of her best friends watched the tragedy of how evil, with women protection, female protection, can allow such a great child who saved my daughter one time on an event that I've discussed before. And yet, when she was in danger of being killed, and eventually was, no child will really hang herself. It's a rare situation. And then the family never notices for several days that she's hanging from a tree in the backyard. Yet, the evil involved with Arizona's Child Protective Service, the evil of the Phoenix PD. And this is my fault, and I know this more than anybody else, because Michael Roy Turney approaches them and says, you need to look at this and investigate this. It's not going to happen. When Alyssa was molested in the custody of her father, whether he did it or one of his friends did it, or whether she was molested, it's denied because the Phoenix PD calls me a vigilante. And they refuse to pursue it. They refuse to pursue a complaint because a man who really was obviously lost the control, was drunk, and wants to run over and kill me with a car. And knowing as a police officer and any common sense, domestic violence will progress, and you can see it coming. And then it reaches to a point where someone is killed or dies, usually the innocent, as the way tragedy can be. And yet, a police department, because of their hatred for me for exposing their bad cops, which the good cops within them too, and I used to have those recordings of officers. Why did you leave the Phoenix Police Department? They said, because of what they teach in the academy. It's unconstitutional, and I know the Constitution. So if you're an educated person with knowledge of the Constitution, the Phoenix PD did not want you. Now, that doesn't mean they're all bad folks, but the good ones, a lot of them just quit, even after they even went in the field and saw what bad cops like Anderson and Summershoe did to me, were allowed to get away with it. And they couldn't believe in their mind that they saw this and decided, my values and my moral compass is a hell of a lot higher than this. I'm not going to stay with an organization that does that. Those tape recordings, along with all the truth about this case, folks, are gone. And yet, they want to know why I tape things. Why do I ramble? Because I am mentally ill. There's no question in that. Am I evil? Do I have a long, lengthy history of killing human beings, committing crimes? No, I was turned into a criminal. As I told, when I first got out of prison, after being tortured for 3 years, I set out and tell the news media this was all created by the Phoenix Police Department, which is a generic statement. It was actually created because they took a weak-minded, low-moral person named William Anderson and got him in the back room and told him, your objective is to punish Michael Turney. You create an arrest, no matter what it takes, we'll cover your back. Now, that fell apart when a man with honor, who really was concerned with the integrity of his own police department, removed those 2 officers from this case back in 2000, whatever it was, 15 or 16. But yet, because of the evil that can come about, Alistair, Dale, or whoever else you want to blame it, these men are allowed to go back in control of this and create more lies and abuse the whole system to go back to the objective that they had in mind, which was not moral, it was not in a Judeo-Christian sense, and it certainly was not in the rule of law. And they're going to get this man no matter what it takes. Now, planting evidence, altering evidence, destroying it, Arizona's Phoenix Police Department is #1 in the nation for that, according to our court decisions. Not Mike Turney's opinion, not some status poll somewhere. It's according to the court rulings, which most of them come at the level of the federal, or at least the highest level in the state of Arizona. And I want to remind you that the state, Arizona Supreme Court, ignored all of the misconduct of the Phoenix Police Department in the mid-60s, which had to be looked at by the United States Supreme Court, and then they ruled on the Miranda decision. that the behavior of the Phoenix Police Department was unacceptable. To which they did, those people who control that police department and the inner police, flipped up two birds, two fingers, and said, just kiss my whatever. And that's exactly what has been the attitude of this police department that since I can remember, starting race riots, violating stuff, protecting their police officers to a point of disgust. And I've seen this, tried to tell people this is what the truth is, but as I learned as a kid, many things, actually the truth never flies, and you're always punished if you're bringing forth the truth. And our history throughout the beginning of man and civilization is exemplified. And because I make, comparisons of Socrates, Sir Walter Raleigh, Archimedes, Martin Luther King Jr., and Jesus Christ, who all of these people were destroyed because they had a message, a good message that interrupted the corruption that goes on and makes profit off of human beings. I don't know, maybe men are evil. Maybe just by nature we're evil. But I know this much from what all the things that I have seen and many things that I have read. Maybe it is time that the dominant species of humans be destroyed, and let's let another one of God's creations become the new dominant species. Because we really don't have any more right than any other creature that a God, if you wish, or was created somehow, came onto this lovely planet that sustains life. So if this is too philosophical for the female radical feminists like my daughter, who, I had to reverse vasectomy and the whole thing to bring her on this planet. And now she wants to destroy the image of her own mother. She wants to use a very corrupted, bad, who cares who we take money from, news media like NBC and ABC, who I've dealt directly with and watched them alter all kinds of things. And even to the day, Peacock claims that this tripe gossip family, family secrets, has turned this thing into an evil monster, saying, but in one sense they're showing the rest of the world how corrupt Arizona and Maricopa County is. Okay. Kind of a double-edged sword on that one, but they don't even realize it because they're just looking for money. They wouldn't do this if they were not making money from it. But maybe God in his intervention is looking at this. And if I can believe all the gossip that comes on our entertainment and news media, maybe they are going to go out of business. Because evil eventually comes to an end, and there are tranquil times that when good, peace and harmony exist. And we need to teach, and we've heard this especially during the 60s, love one another, do unto others you have them do unto you, golden rule. We've had all of this stuff. But the evil, usually instigated by our own government or world interventions, or us being weak enough to allow a communist nation to open up a broadcasting station called TikTok. That's the beginning of a cancer, folks, and it will kill you. But I sit back, still as a parent, though my daughter's escalating all these lies, rumors, innuendos, and stuff, knowing full well that at any given time she's carrying a time bomb because she has taken it. And if she may not have it, but if she carries the gene that her mother carries, she'll be dead within a short period of time. Do I want this? No. I want the love and the care of a daughter who, with her mother and I, worked very hard to bring her into our attorney bunch, because Barbara believed that by introducing mine or ours in a family was mine, hers, and ours. She really believed that stuff. Idealistic, if you wish, stupid, if you want to call it. That was Barbara Lee Turney. A woman who had been abused by just about every man she had met until she came in with me. Some of the stories I hear, how could any human being tell a woman that if she doesn't get an abortion, that he's going to kick her out of his house? And after the second one, she nearly dies. She keeps a child. And because of the nature, as Donna Turney, or Donna, whatever her last name is, the letter that Alyssa or Sarah read on there is claiming I did it, can tell you about what it's like to live a life of abuse, sexual and physical, and accept that and not knowing the difference. This is Barbara's life completely. Even Sarah's or Alyssa's biological father, who sat back and couldn't understand that his violence towards her special child, that she drugged through all these bad relationships, including Steve, who his philosophy to stop bedwetting is to yank that boy up after he goes to sleep by the hair of his head and make him go to the bathroom. Slap his wife around, try and kill anybody associated with coming anywhere near her. And emotions can really get out of hand. Domestic violence is very strong and very high. And as long as you have a police department as bad as the Phoenix Police Department, who kills second only most citizens compared to Los Angeles in this nation, and nobody sees that as a problem. Police officers are needed desperately in a nation, especially as populated as we're starting to get. But we don't need the bad ones any more than we need bad teachers, bad government people. And we the people, have an obligation to get rid of these people, but we're not doing our job. So are we doomed under God's wrath, retribution, karma, whatever you want to lay on it, folks? Yes, I do believe that there is an entity that takes care of this. Because, folks, I have seen, even going back to when I was a child, people who did evil things to me somehow just all of a sudden had a tragedy. I have seen union members, and this was the news, of a horrible accident that took 5, not 6, lives by a car crash when the I-40 was just opened up. But 5 of those men was part of the people that I identified to the Phoenix Police Department and the federal government that had committed crimes against my family over irrational union behavior during the building of the Palo Verde nuclear power plant. So is that karma? Is that evil? And they look at me and say, well, look at you. You know, karma's come back. What karma? What did I do? Never was a criminal. Didn't commit these crimes. I can tell you that right now. But the power of my own government that I stood up for, wore the uniform, the whole yards, even during that period of time of the most tragic thing that could occur in a great nation like Project 100,000. The lies involved in that, all the way to Washington, can alter records. And they do that all the time. And they can do that easily because you don't have any proof to prove it. Phoenix Police Department, Maricopa County, and the state of Arizona have often come after me, folks. And I have constantly used my habitual use of the tape recorder throughout my life when they were going to use their power wrongfully to incarcerate me, shoot me, beat me up, or whatever else they had in mind at the time. One of the most famous ones at all, and they all wonder why didn't Child Protective Services take Alyssa and Sarah and all these kind of things. It's simple, folks. It was false done by a mentally ill person called Teresa Ortberg with family trash in between. But because Mike Turney videotaped when the Child Protective Services came to my house, where one of those vicious women who was hysterical openly stated that no male single parent should be allowed to have female children because they always molest them. Which I didn't try and abuse folks, but I used it as a negotiation to get them to come to the table, and we worked it out. Now the contracts that were made because they wanted living proof, absolute physical proof that my children were not abused, that now has been twisted and turned, and it was all for the subject of trying to keep an already devastated family together. So you want to call me evil, folks, manipulative, cult-like, what do they call it, indoctrinated my children? Yes, I did. I indoctrinated my children that the rule of law and Judeo-Christian values, which I tried to instill in the society, always picks at our kids and tries to destroy. You want to call that evil? That's your business. But really, when you have your own family, it's really none of your damn business what the family does internally, unless, of course, someone is being harmed. Child Protective Services is a necessity because there is a lot of bad situations, but not just jump in the middle of it because somebody from out of state starts telling rumors and innuendos and lies because of their own personal want, because of the loss of their sister, that they want to take possession of her children. Or send one of those aunts to the house, all the way from California to Arizona, willing to marry me in order to keep close to her own sister's family. Human nature sometimes confuses me, and I really don't understand it. I really don't. But this is the nature, I guess. We're not perfect. We're almost like an infestation. Whenever we try and get great messengers who are trying to tell us, this is the way you should act, this is the way you should treat, that you were created by a superior being who's looking down on you at all times, to try and get rid of this kind of tripe garbage and stuff. So as for me, every day I think of suicide just because I'm selfish. I want to end my life because I don't really like what I saw in the past, especially since 2001 and 2008. To take a man who really believes in the rule of law and study very hard to try and learn our billion laws and regulations, tried to raise a family, tried to raise and complete and finish out what was started of the dream of his wife, Barbara Lee Turney, of the Turney Bunch. And for that, I'm not punished by God. I'm not punished by his son. I'm punished by people who are running around like factions, using and abusing the power of government and media to destroy a person. I don't know. From my perspective, maybe I am a God-sent person, as I used to be called. Mr. Turney, why are you doing this? You know, you live in a rich area. Why are you defending people? You're not an attorney. They get, in the poor sections because it was the right thing to do. Kept to actually say that I have this control in reference to falling in love. I've fallen in love with 2 women in my life, actually 3. And my errors are many, folks, just as human as anybody else. But are they evil enough to kill people, to molest babies and children? No. I like to believe that I have a conscience. But to watch somebody you love so much, and Sarah is destroying herself. She needs to be cautious. I've told her she had to listen. All of my children had to listen. If there was something they were doing that was a bad tradition or something that could cause them great harm. And Alyssa needed that 24/7. And though I ask all the people who are now turning around and saying that I'm the most evil person on the planet, I asked them for help, including her own biological father, and they all said no. And now they turn around and say that Michael Turney, out of whatever lust, anything that you want to name, molested and murdered his own daughter. And any person who could do anything harm to someone as precious and vulnerable as Alyssa Marie Turney is beyond evil. That's one of those children that comes along that is so precious, that reminds us, if we all acted the way that she did, if we all believed everybody, if we all trusted everybody, that the world would be a much better place. But we made it so complicated and lost our trail and our path and past traditions. Representative government, Judeo-Christian, under a rule of law, which is labeled inalienable and God endowed. So you listen to a story that nobody really gives a rat's because we're turning around and we're following factions who've lost their mind. Really? I want to tell you about this factions allowing to divide a nation. Please go back and read the historical, not the rumors, innuendos, and gossips or books that's being put out by people to make money, of what led to the most tragic and vicious and violent war based on 2 political parties. Good luck to us. To me, I look forward to closing my eyes for the last time because I don't want to watch the rest of this stuff. This is to think that this great nation would destroy itself. Can one man change this? I don't know. One man influence the entire world. And though they killed him for it, I would hope to see those values return. But I have little hope that they will. Good luck to us. Pray for America. And hope that you're not on that list. That God, karma, what goes around comes around affects you. Because what you do, folks, the evil that you do will come back. And the truth always surfaces. And so far to this date, as I end this, There's been no truth, none whatsoever, that my lovely daughter, my precious Alyssa, is even dead. There is no truth to say exactly what happened to her. Mine's are speculations, because the day that Alyssa ran away, I have no information whatsoever to sustain that had to do with human trafficking. All I do know is that there was evil, like Shirley Robinson, the Dingmans, Jessica, the very people on here right now that could have influenced her to actually run away from the safety of a home under the promise of a dying woman that I would get her through high school without being pregnant, and it would teach her not to fall in abusive, physical and otherwise relationships like John Lackman was doing to Alyssa, to which all of my attempts have now turned into something evil because of feminine gossip. Tragedy. Good luck to you. Good luck to America.